I didn't upgrade my Hangouts. Me, no.
I didn't know you could upgrade your Hangouts.
I didn't know that either.
I'm on the app and I had to upgrade, and I'm wondering whether there's something going on with the older version, with an older version.
No, she's on a
I
computer.
haven't changed mine at all.
Yeah, all
You
right.
don't use the app on a computer.
Well, now I can't hear any of you.
Oh, God.
Go ahead.
not
I'll
hear
read your
us?
lips. Forget me.
No, no.
Maybe use your phone.
I don't think she understood.
Maybe you should.
So in any case, so you have this big vote, Dina. Is it? Do you think it's going to go through?
I'm thinking positive.
Well, you have to invite me again on my phone. Can you invite me? I'm sorry.
Beth,
Hold on one second. Sorry, go ahead, Dina.
Beth Abraham has enough yes votes, and last week Beth Ann was well on their way, so I'm pretty confident that it's going to pass.
There are people against it, huh?
Well, there are some people who think we're moving too fast.
Really?
They want to get all the ducks in a row before they say yes.
Right.
And don't understand that it's very difficult to put together a set of bylaws for something that doesn't exist yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, we crafted a set of bylaws knowing that within the next 6 months, they're going to have to be edited.
Yeah.
My people in New Jersey are thrilled that they've had very good luck so far.
Thank you for muting me. I don't know. Gosh.
Mom, you have to mute one of your two devices.
Okay. I'm
Your
sorry.
computer. Like just turn the sound off on your computer.
I slammed the thing shut.
Okay, that works.
I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh.
That shut all of us off for a minute.
Well, good.
Oh my gosh.
The good news is I've been recording for the past 5 minutes, so this is all recorded for posterity. So that's good. All right, let's get started.
Sure.
So we are on chapter 31, verse 18.
Did you do some all this time before I came on?
We didn't do
Not
anything
today.
yet.
Oh, I wasn't there with you last week. I
Oh,
wasn't there.
Right. Chapter 31, verse 18. Okay, we're about to get the tablets. This is exciting. Lenore, would you like to read?
Sure. When he finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, he gave Moses the 2 tablets of the pact. Oh, God, I'm sorry. I just shut it off. I hope. I'm sorry. Oh, come on.
Two old women fighting with technology this morning.
I have 2 types of technology in this room, so, okay.
That's all?
I'm sorry. In this room, I said. He gave Moses the 2 tablets. Stone tablets inscribed with the finger of God. All right, that's the end of 18.
Yeah. So he gave Moses. It doesn't say God gave Moses. There's a little note here from Ramban, who says that the subject of the sentence is withheld until the end of the verse, but it is to be read, God gave Moses. Both the writing and the speech are connected with the aspect of God called Elohim. The tablets were Elohim's work, and the writing was Elohim's work, incised upon the tablets. So too the giving was done by Elohim.
Rabbi, excuse me, it is capitalized, so that would refer to God, he.
What's interesting to me about this actually is not the fact that the subject is saved for the end, but rather that it's Elohim. So you know that we have the two biblical names for God, the two primary biblical names for God are Elohim and Adonai. Elohim is sort of the distant, judgmental, if you will, ruling image of God, whereas Adonai is the more personal image of God. So I guess it actually makes, I mean, in one way, well, actually, you know what? Hold on. I'm interested in something. Back when God revealed God's self, I'll look and see what it says. Okay. So, okay, so you know, we have three sort of revelations, if you will, right? We have the first revelation, which is when God speaks the Ten Commandments. Then we have this, which is the giving of the Ten Commandments. And then we have the next one, which is the second set. What's interesting to me is that here it says Elohim gave Moses. Back in chapter 20, verse 1, it says that Elohim spoke. Okay, so here's what I was thinking. What I was thinking was it would have been really nice if Adonai had spoken the words, but Elohim had written them down and given them, because Adonai is the more personal, imminent. You know, it's like you're having a conversation, as opposed to writing down law, which feels like a very, not distant, but authoritarian. Yeah. But in both it says Elohim. But then in the Ten Commandments itself, the second word is Anochi Adonai Elohecha. I am Adonai your God. So my theory didn't really work, but in the speaking and in the writing, the word used for Elohim, for God, is Elohim. I'm sorry, go ahead. Was someone going to say something? No?
No.
So okay. I don't know what.
It's a really weird comment. Having completed the instructions regarding the tabernacle and the Kohanim, the Torah goes back to the narrative of giving of the law at Mount Sinai. According to our friend Rashi, this is an instance of the principle that the Torah is not always written in chronological order. The above commandments regarding the tabernacle were given to Moses on the day after Yom Kippur, over 3 months after the Ten Commandments were given, and it was then that Moses commanded the nation to begin the contributions for its construction.
Wait. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. These tablets were given the day after Yom Kippur?
The above commandments regarding the tabernacle were given to Moses on the day after Yom Kippur.
Okay, go ahead.
Over 3 months after the Ten Commandments were given, and it was then that Moses commanded the nation to begin the contributions for its construction. But the episode of the golden calf, which begins in the next chapter, took place on the 17th of Tammuz, only 40 days after the revelation. Nachmanides, however, holds that the commandment to build the tabernacle was given to Moses during his first 40 days on the mountain, but its transmission to the nation was delayed because of the sin of the Egel. Sforno explains the sequence of the chapters as follows. Okay, here we go. In God's original plan, there would have been no need for a tabernacle, for every Jew was to have had the status of a Kohen, would have been worthy of building his own altar and offering, and of being a resting place for the divine presence. If so, why did this potential not come to fruition? Why was God's intent replaced by the preceding chapters about a central tabernacle, and why was it necessary to designate a priestly family? The Torah will now explain that Israel fell from its spiritual pinnacle because of the golden calf. No longer could it be a nation of individual priests and tabernacles. From that point onward, Israel needed a central tabernacle toward which it would direct its aspirations, and a holy priestly family that would be dedicated to God's sacrificial service.
Okay. What do you find strange about that?
This is confusing me a little.
The stuff, I mean, the Torah, their interpretation that the Torah is out of sequence.
Right. So that's actually a common thing. The idea that-
I understand.
Right. So I think part of the problem here is that the second set of tablets were given after. So the golden calf, I guess this is a year later. The golden calf happens on Tisha B'Av. And then Moses goes back up, and 40 days later is what do you call it? Is Yom Kippur. And that's when we get the second set of tablets.
But this says that the golden calf happened on the 17th of Tammuz.
Oh, the Shavas of Tammuz?
So that's 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av.
9, hold on a second. So 20.
17th of Tammuz is the beginning of the 3 weeks.
Right, I know. 20, 30. There are 7 weeks in between.
Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got four haftarahs of rebuke and then 3 of consolation.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me see what I can find here.
There's excuse me, I'll just break in here for a second. On that number 18 that we just read, there's a whole thing of commentary and Eitz Chaim on that it doesn't really refer to what we told you. Would you like to hear it?
Sure.
It is numbered 18. Okay, so the Midrash notes the similarity of the Hebrew for, quote, he finished, unquote, kaloto, and, quote, his bride, kaloto, suggesting that when Moses received the Torah, he was as joyous as a bridegroom on his wedding day. Exodus 41, number 6. The metaphor of giving the Torah as solemnizing a marriage between God and the Jewish people, with the Torah serving as the marriage document, the Ketubah, occurs frequently in the Midrash. So does the metaphor of Israel's disobedience being like marital infidelity rather than simply the breaking of a law. Another Midrash fastens on the similarity of the Hebrew words for, quote, he finished, kalot, and, quote, rule, unquote. It suggests that at Sinai, God gave Moses general rules or principles from which Moses derived the specific details of the Torah's laws. This would seem to point to a human element of the development of laws of the Torah. See comment on 34:1. A Midrash reads the Hebrew word for, quote, stone, unquote, in stone tablets, unquote, as father to son. I don't, event,
Because that the stone word, the word for stone in here is Evan,
yes,
and they're reading it as Av Ben, father to son.
amen, yeah. The Torah was not given to one generation alone, nor was it given only to scholars and leaders. It was meant to be passed on from parent to child. And then above that, there's something that says a coda. This concluding verse, which tells of Moses receiving the tablets of stone, picks up where the last narrative left off. Moses is sent to Mount Sinai to acquire those tokens of the covenant. It also serves as a transition to the next episode, which involves the smashing of those tablets. I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah, I have Rashi's comment is about the bride piece also.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it seemed,
It's a play on words. That's what's happening. The rabbis are picking up a play on.
Okay, so I've got something else. For Vayitain El Moshe, he gave Moses. Throughout the 40 days that Moses was on Mount Sinai, God taught him the Torah, but he constantly forgot. Finally, God presented it to him as a gift, as if it were his bride. If it was impossible for a human being, even one as great as Moses, to absorb God's wisdom without divine assistance, why didn't God present it to him immediately without forcing him to go through 40 days of frustrating failure? Chidushei Harim explains that the Torah can be understood only with God's help, but he gives such assistance only to someone who tries his utmost to master it on his own. Thus, Moses earned the divine gift by means of his effort. The same is true of every student of the Torah. It is up to us to try to the limit of our ability. Then we can hope for God's help.
that's interesting.
Okay, I found. So the golden calf was on the 17th of Tammuz. It was the spies, the sin of the spies that was on Tisha B'Av.
Okay.
So God reveals God's self, and then Moses and God disappear for 40 days. Then on the 17th of Tammuz, which is 40 days after Shavuot, they do the golden calf. Then, hold on a moment.
Oh, wow.
It says, according to tradition, the Israelites received final forgiveness for the golden calf incident when Moses came down from Mount Sinai at the end of the third period of 40 days, the 10th of Tishrei, Yom Kippur. So it sounds like there was Shavuot, then you had 40 days until the golden calf, then you had 80 days from the 17th of Tammuz until Yom Kippur. Does that make sense, I wonder?
That's three sets of 40, I guess.
Right. I want to actually count these. All right. So the 11th of July, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait a second.
We mentioned 40 and we mentioned 80.
2, 3, 4, 5. 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Shoot, hold on, I'm sorry. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. 11 times 7 is 77. Yeah, that does make sense, actually. It's 80 days from What just happened? Mom, I'm going to mute you.
Can't hear her.
It's 80 days from the 17th of Tammuz up until Yom Kippur. So it's 120 days from Shavuot to Yom Kippur.
Okay. So the second time he was up for 80 days?
No, it sounds like there are there are 3 days. I'm not sure.
It was 40 and then 80. It was 40 and then 80.
No. But if they panicked after he was gone for 40 days, they would never have waited 80 days.
Well, you read that.
Right. No, I don't think he went up for 80 days. There are 3 distinct periods of 40 days. I think that maybe he came down in between or something.
Could be.
It's not clear to me. It's not clear.
So, all right, but I want to make sure I get this. So the second set of tablets was at the end of the 3rd period?
Correct.
So maybe he was down for 40 days.
I'm sorry?
Up the mess. Maybe he was not on the mountain, but maybe it took 40 days to clean up the mess of the golden calf before he could go back up. In other words, maybe he didn't go back up immediately.
Right. It's possible.
But
I don't quite get it. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I found another comment about still in that thing, Shnei Luchot Ha'edut, the 2 tablets of testimony.
Right.
The vav is omitted in Luchot, so that the word can be read as if it was in the singular, Luchat, tablet. This teaches the 2 tablets were identical in size. That's from Rashi. Yefet Toar explains that although in the plain sense this refers to the actual size of the tablets, it has deeper meaning as well. And some of this we've talked about before. The 5 commandments on the first tablet speak of man's relationship with God, while the 5 commandments on the second tablet refer to man's relationship with his fellow human beings. By indicating the 2 tablets were equal, the Torah teaches that both kinds of commandments are equally important. The Torah does not recognize the primacy of ritual over social laws and vice versa. Both are necessary parts of the divine scheme. Okay, this is the part that for me was new. This is from Rev Bachya. That the 10 commandments were inscribed on 2 tablets instead of 1 was because they testified that God rested his presence upon Israel, and testimony must be rendered by 2 witnesses. The 2 tablets also allude to their dual nature. The stone was from earth and the script was from heaven. I like that.
I like the 2 witnesses piece. I never thought of that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Ibn Ezra has a long comment here, which is really sort of interesting. He says, he's talking about inscribed with the finger of God. So he says, this is a great and permanent miracle. Again, since an ordinary writer writes with his finger, the text speaks metaphorically of God in this way. Is achieved by speech. So that's one thing. That's interesting. But here's the next thing. Some empty-headed people wonder what Moses could have done on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Is that even if Moses had spent 4 times this many years, he could not have acquired 1,000th part of an understanding of God's deeds and ways and the reasons for the commandments. These people think the commandments are about what one does and what one thinks as well. As Jeremiah put it, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, but in understanding and knowing me. And one cannot know God without knowing one's own soul, one's body. For what wisdom does a person have if he does not understand the quality of his own soul? Even Moses, shortly before his death, admits to God that he had, quote, just begun to show his greatness to him. What wisdom does... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Meaning that God just began to show Moses his own greatness. Is that what that last?
I think so. I think so.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so.
That
What do
he
you
did
think?
his, I was confusing.
I think that Hashem was showing Moses' greatness all along. I think that only toward the end was Moses able to start to comprehend this greatness.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, okay.
The piece that jumped out at me from this is the what wisdom does a person have if he does not understand the quality of his own soul? One cannot know God without knowing one's own soul. That somehow understanding of the divine is not only intimately linked, but is knowledge of oneself.
That's a big concept.
Yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to say, Freda?
Mute yourself, Mom. We were just getting a lot of feedback. That's why I muted you. There you go. No, now you muted yourself again. Undo it again. You're pressing too many buttons. What have you done? Now you're frozen.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. I agree with, I guess it was Dina or David, I don't know which one said it, that you have, or I agree with the text, that I don't know whether to make it a statement of command or just tell you my experience. Yes, for me, I had to come to an understanding of who I was, my soul, before I could come to an understanding of Hashem. Before, and it took me a heck of a long time. Took me a long time. So that's all I wanted to say. It just, I understood what that was saying. See, it wasn't worth waiting for me.
No, it was worth it. It's also interesting that he says one's own, you have to know your own soul. Mom, I'm going to just because we're getting a lot of feedback.
Okay.
Just
The voice is
unmute
already
yourself.
starting.
I muted you. You don't have to press anything, Mom. Your own soul, your own spirit, and your own body. That seems to be an argument for yoga, maybe. Body.
It's similar to the argument of not studying Kabbalah until you're 40.
Oh,
So
yeah, it is.
So you've had a chance to,
Right. Yeah.
develop as a human being, as a
Right.
person.
Well, so when with regard to Kabbalah, it's more about you're not going to understand Kabbalah unless you know Torah inside and out.
Right, and
Because
you have to have fulfilled your obligation to raise a family.
Right. By the way, Dina, I know you were confused about the out of order idea.
Yeah.
As that he thinks these passages are all written in the correct order.
Okay.
So,
All right,
listen to this. Dina.
If that's the case, then the whole 3 times 40 doesn't work.
I don't know.
Because if these are told in the order in which they happened, then the first set of tablets is written, which kind of makes sense with a lot of what we read. You've got the first set of tablets, and then we've got the golden calf, which is what somebody read, I forget which comment it was, that it wasn't a breaking of the law, it was an infidelity. You can't have infidelity if you don't have a ketubah.
Well, except they may not have had a written. You're saying if the golden calf happened before they got the Ten Commandments, before they got the tablets?
The tablets, yeah.
So they didn't have a written ketubah, but they did have an oral ketubah.
Okay. Remember that all the midrashim and all the stories that we have heard basically say that they tuned out.
Right.
At the latest, in the middle of command of the second statement.
Right.
Which means that they, other than, I don't know how, I'm the Lord your God, thou shalt have no other gods before me. That would be the breaking of the law. But the rest of it, there's not an infidelity, because they haven't, if they signed a prenup, they signed it without knowing what was in it. Well, think about it.
Yes, but that's, the famous midrash about.
Wait, did you say yes, but?
Yes, I did. Yes, but you remember the famous midrash about how God took the Torah to all the nations of the world. They all said, "What's in it?" Right? And then God came to Israel and said, and they didn't say what's in it. They said, "Na'aseh v'nishma." So they sort of did sign the prenup without, if you want to buy that midrash.
Okay.
And in fact, I would argue that that's a very Jewish thing to do. Well, it's not anymore, but in antiquity, it's a very Jewish thing to do, to say, yes, you just sign the dotted line, then you read the fine print. It's what we all do with the iTunes terms of service. Every time we update iTunes, no one reads that. We all sign it, and then we bitch and moan when we find out that they can use our for whatever nefarious purposes they have. Here's another interesting little piece. Okay, so this is about why they were written on stone. So I have down here the thing that you just said, Dina, about the 2 tablets for the 2 witnesses. Then he says, why stone? 1, because they wouldn't decay. And sorry, that's Bechor Shor. And then Chizkuni says, also because most of the punishments involve death by stoning. So because the punishments were inflicted by stoning, the laws were given on stone.
That's a warning.
Yeah, it sort of is, right?
Oh, wow.
It's a heavy one.
It's heavy, but it's a tangible symbol of
it's totally
of the punishment of these, if you don't follow these laws. All right, should we go on to 32? That was pretty good. So now we get to the golden calf.
When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered. Is that right? Okay. Yeah, I guess it goes on here. The people gathered against Aaron and said to him, "Come, make us a god who shall go before us. For that man Moses, who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has happened to him." Aaron said to them,
Wait. Hold on.
You can't go any further.
all right.
All right, so my first comment was on, well, my translation is Moses had delayed. The catastrophe of the golden calf was precipitated by a tragic error. Moses went up to Mount Sinai on the 7th of Sivan. and said that he would be there for 40 days and return in the morning. The people thought that the day of his ascent counted as the first day of the 40, and therefore Moses would be back on the 16th of Tammuz. That was a mistake. Moses meant that he would be away for a full 40 days and 40 nights, which meant that he would come back on the 17th. When noon of the 16th came and went without Moses' return, the people became fearful. Satan seized the opportunity and created an illusion of darkness and turmoil and showed them an image of a dead Moses being carried in heaven. That's Rashi.
Right. It was a simple accounting error.
So Rekanati explains that the spiritual level of the nation was so high after the revelation of the Ten Commandments that if Moses had come down bearing the tablets, the goal of creation would have been fulfilled, and there would have been no more death or temptation to do evil as we know it. The world would have reverted to the stage of perfection that existed at the beginning of creation. Satan, whose mission is to tempt people to evil, fought this threat to his power and succeeded in deceiving the people.
So, really long introductory comment here. I have no idea if it's any good. Let me start it and see what we do with it. He says, I must expound at length on the golden calf episode. Some say that the Aaron mentioned here was not the Aaron who was Moses' brother. Well, that's news to me. I'd never heard that before.
Some say, so that could be his imagination.
Yeah. But then he says, but that is not true. So even he disagrees with those people. For we find no one else in the Torah with this name. One might as well say, okay, yada, yada, yada. Okay, I'm going to skip that part. I think he's just disproving this. Some say Aaron asked the men for their wives' rings in order to put them off, for he thought that the women would not give them up. But this is absurd, for women are under their husband's authority. Our sages deduced that Aaron, seeing that Hur had been killed, made the calf because he was afraid. Their evidence that Hur was killed is that he is never mentioned after this, but it is certainly implausible that Hur would have been more righteous than Aaron, refusing to make the calf when Aaron did not. That what Aaron was afraid of was that if they killed him too, then God would kill them all. The real question is how Aaron could become God's priest after having made an idol. That's a good question, right? How could Aaron become God's priest after having made an idol? The idea that the calf Aaron is told to sacrifice is connected with the golden calf is just midrash. The evidence of Hur can be discounted too. If you don't think so, show me where in the Torah Nachshon appears. Others say that they deceived Aaron, making a calf-shaped mold into which he unwittingly threw the gold. That's stupid also. Sadia says that Aaron's intent was to unmask the secret idolaters among the people through trickery. He understands saying that the people had been let loose to mean that the idolaters were exposed. He bases this on the He keeps saying stuff that he disagrees with. He says further that God was angry at Aaron for waiting until Moses came down and not killing the idolaters immediately, a delay that led to the breaking of the tablets. He thinks that when Aaron said, tomorrow shall be a festival of the Lord, he really meant a slaughter. There. So, okay, can we get to the point where you tell me what you think? Sadia says further that the reason it is made in the form of a calf is that there are people in India who think this form channels a higher power, an ability that the Israelites also attributed to Moses. I reveal the secret of the calf to you elusively. I have already explained to you the verse, I place you in the role of God to Pharaoh. All the people wanted was someone to go before them to seek out a resting place for them. They assumed the reason Moses did not come down was that he was dead. It was for the Lord that Aaron built the altar, and for the Lord that Aaron offered the sacrifices. But he did so improperly, that is, not in a state of sanctity. There were some among the Israelites who thought that it was genuine idolatry, which is why they exclaimed, "These are your gods." In fact, one who understands the workings of heaven will understand why it was made in the form of a calf. Ibn Ezra seems to say that was entirely appropriate because Aaron did it for God, but the people misunderstood it. I don't know. By the way, there's a bunch of attention paid to when it says "make us a god." Where's the "Aselanu Elohim," which, by the way, is the same word used when God gave the Ten Commandments, right? Make for us a god. Most of the commentators say, well, so Ibn Ezra says, a divine presence embodied in physical form, like the angel of God who guided Israel in the form of a pillar of cloud when they originally left Egypt. Sounds a little bit like Jesus.
Yeah, but
Not
this wasn't a person. It's a calf isn't a person.
No, but it's a physical embodiment. Make us a god, not a god, but a judge or magistrate in the sense of a leader. They did not intend it for idolatry, God forbid. What they wanted was a sort of talisman that would have divine power based on Egyptian religion in which such figures were made. I have no doubt that they asked Aaron for this not just one day, not just two, but many days in a row. They did not simply ask Aaron to take over, having realized after Moses' presumed death that man born of woman is short-lived and sated with trouble. What is a talisman?
It's like an amulet. It's something that you believe will bring you luck and good fortune.
It has magic powers. Yeah.
How do you spell that? I couldn't understand it.
Talisman.
Okay.
Is there any connection between talisman and talit?
Do you have it online?
I would not guess so. What's the?
I'm checking on my
up
notes.
the etymology of talisman?
Yeah. I don't see it. Talisman.
Is your mom still here?
Mid-70s
No, she left.
century, based on the Arabic tilsam, apparently from an alteration of late Greek telesma, religious rite. There may not be an official connection, but there's it. I don't know. It's interesting. Consecration, ceremony, completion, perform religious rite. That's interesting. I don't know. Okay. Nachmani says, Rashi's comment on this verse is somewhat off target. In fact, this whole verse is key to understanding the episode of the golden calf and the intentions of those who made it. Obviously, the Israelites did not think that Moses was God or that he had performed the signs and wonders by his own power. So why would it make sense to say, Moses is gone, let us make a god? That's a good question. Right? Why do they say Moses is gone, let us make a god? They know that Moses isn't a god. Explicitly asked for a God who shall go before us, not one who would give them life in this world or in the world to come. What they wanted was a second Moses. What they meant was Moses, who has guided us from Egypt to this place, us make a new Moses who will guide us at God's command. That is why they called Moses the man who brought us from the land of Egypt, not the God. What they needed was a new man of God. You can learn from Aaron's excuse to Moses. So this is later on when Aaron tells Moses what happened. He says, they said to me, make us a God to lead us, not a God to worship. He explained to Moses, as long as you were gone, they needed a guide. If you should return, they would leave him and follow you, as they had done at first. In fact, this is exactly what happened. As soon as the people saw Moses, they abandoned the calf contemptuously, letting Moses burn it and grind it into powder without anyone intervening. In fact, they fled from the calf without Moses saying a word to them. If they had really worshipped the calf, they certainly would not have let Moses burn it without stoning him to death. In any case, it was Aaron who made the calf. They did not tell him what to make. The meaning of the rabbinic saying to which Rashi alludes, that they wanted many gods. They did not know whether it would be better to make an ox or a sheep or a goat or what have you. But Aaron chose an ox because that was the face on the left or north of the chariot seen by Ezekiel. Then, of course, Aaron knew about Ezekiel a couple thousand years before Ezekiel ever lived. And it is from the left that God's aspect of judgment comes to the world. Aaron told them tomorrow should be a festival of the Lord because he wanted them to focus on the aspect of God, on that aspect of God, to obtain God's favor with regard to the destructive power. All right, the rest of this is very Kabbalistic. It's very interesting to me who the rabbis come to defend. The first one that I read, and I'm forgetting who it was, Aaron off the hook. This one places, I think, lets the Israelites off the hook and puts Aaron on the hook and says it was his idea to do the calf.
Well, I've got a thing here that says the Egyptian sorcerers of the era of Rav exercised their occult powers to cause a calf to emerge. That's from Rashi.
Yeah, it's always our fault. Yeah, it's always our fault. Era of Rav is. So the era of Rav means the mixed multitude. And these are a group of Egyptians that left with the Israelites. And so every time something bad happens, the rabbis blame it on the era of Rav. It's not the Jews. It's those guys.
Well, that's what they're saying. That's why it ended up as a calf.
Okay.
That Aaron just threw the gold into the fire, hoping that it would be a shapeless blob that wouldn't mean anything to anybody.
Okay, that makes sense. With blaming the era of Rav is that rabbinical students are considered era of Rav. Rabbinical students are, Erev means almost. So if you're almost a rabbi, you're a rabbinical student. So, in rabbinical school, it was always our fault. Everything was our fault because we were the Erev Rav. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that before, Dina, that the reason it turned out to be a calf was perhaps because of the Egyptians who were with them, and calves were considered in the Egyptian culture.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
The other thing that's interesting, and I know we're not really getting into this, but my translation says, rise up and make for us gods.
Yeah.
So it actually pulls the Elohim into the plural. Right.
So that's strange on a number of levels because, of course, Elohim is plural, but when we use it to refer to God, it's not, we don't read it as plural. Yeah.
But they're not looking for our God. They're looking for They're looking for manifestations of Hashem's power.
Right.
That will guide them in the way that Moses has guided them. And maybe they felt that one wasn't enough.
They were groping for something higher than they were, but they weren't sure where.
Well, I would say maybe this is even a commentary on Moses, on the esteem that they had for Moses. You know, maybe this is them saying we need gods, plural, because there is no one who can rise to the level of Moses, right? No one can be as good as Moses was. We need what is it? You know, when you have someone who works really hard, you say that they did. You know, they do the job of 10 men. Moses did the job of many Elohim, perhaps. But that is curious. You know, my translation doesn't say God. It translates it in the English. It says God, but it's a small g, which is very weird.
Right. Right.
I mean, I understand the reasoning behind that, but it doesn't make a lot of sense.
It does if you follow the concept, the interpretation that they weren't looking for something to worship. They were looking for something to help be an intermediary between the all-powerful God and them.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is what it seems inconsistent to translate it in the singular and not capitalize the G. If I agree with what you just said, if that were true, though, it seems to me that they should have translated it in the plural, small g. Time, I think, that you would translate Elohim in the singular is if you were using a large capital G. When else would you use the word Elohim if you're talking about not capitalize it? So that it's that inconsistency that's interesting to me.
What's the singular? I'm sorry. Yeah, what would be the singular of Elohim?
Yeah, Elohai, I guess. Elohai. There really is no singular of it. Hi, I guess.
Well, what is Elohai though? Because I've heard the word Elohai, but I don't have.
Elohai means my God. Let me Elohim. Let me see if anything comes up.
Him would be H-I-M. Was Elohai H-A-Y or I?
Something like that. So Elohim, grammar and etymology. Hold on a second. Elohim is a grammatically plural noun for gods or deity in biblical Hebrew. It is often referred to in the singular despite the im ending that denotes plural masculine Hebrew nouns. Wait a second. You know what? I have to pull up my, I don't think I even have it out here. My Gesenius. Gesenius is this terrible, horrible Hebrew grammar book, school. It is every student's worst nightmare. I don't even think I have it. I think I packed it away somewhere where I'd never see it again. But that's the citation. The citation here is from Gesenius. That's so funny. Let me see what else it says, if anything. Okay. Alahum.
So the word Elohim came.
Here. It is generally thought that Elohim is derived from Eloah. Yeah, Eloha or Elo. So Elohai means my God. Eloah is God, and it's also connected to the word El, which just means God. So I would say the singular would be El. Elohim and El. The term contains an added hey as a third radical to the biconsonantal root. Oh my God.
There's a third what?
The third hey. The hey. So how do you get, the question is, how do you get from El to Elohim? So it says the hey is added as a third radical to the biconsonantal root. Discussions of the etymology of Elohim essentially concern this expansion. Cognate outside of Hebrew is found in Ugaritic. Excuse me, IHM. The family of El, the creator god and chief deity of the Canaanite pantheon. In Arabic, ilah. Allah. In Arabic, Allah is the singular of Elohim.
Okay.
Yes, and El is the basis for the extended root of Eloah. Interesting.
All right.
Thank God for Wikipedia. I tell you. It's all on Wikipedia. Unbelievable. All right, let's stop here. We'll pick up at verse 2 next time. Next week.
When you are
Oh,
having...
wait, next week is Thursday.
How about 2 weeks?
All right, let's do 2 weeks. Hey, Dina, I'm coming to daven with you next Shabbos.
Thanksgiving weekend?
Yeah, you're going away, aren't you?
I'm going away.
I knew it. I knew it.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Are you going to be with your family?
Yeah.